My name is Jamin. I'm your first friend in Alaska. I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. Today, we're talking about the market update for what's going on in the single family property, the condo, and the multifamily market in Eagle River, Alaska. Before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe. Let's jump into it. First thing I'm going to say is that this time last year, as far as the single family properties on the market, we saw about 69 properties available. This year it is 70. So not a whole lot of difference there. Now, normally we would expect to see anywhere from about 140 to about 160. So even though inventory has gone up a little bit in previous years, we're still seeing like drastically below where we were inventory wise prior to COVID. Next thing we're going to look at is the number of properties we actually see selling in Eagle River. Now, this time last year there were 42 and this year it's 35. So that's a bit of a dip. Now, I do want to look back and see prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 50 to about 54. So historically, we're still seeing a little bit of a dip there. And you know, that's definitely going to be something we're going to keep an eye on moving forward, because we don't necessarily want to see that number coming down too much, because you know, that is kind of indicative of the demand for properties in Eagle River. Now, what we see as far as the average sold price is that this time last year, the average sold price was about $500,000, and this year it's about $542,000 in Eagle River. So even though, like, you might think, well, the demand looks like it might be softening up a little bit, average sold price is actually increasing at a really aggressive rate. Like, it's over 8%. And considering this time last year we were looking at about 1%, you can see how this is a big swing. Do keep in mind, Eagle River is kind of a smaller market, and so you do see like these big fluctuations sometimes that you're going to see happening. So I suspect we probably have a couple of these newer properties that are selling probably in the Eagle Point area, and that's probably driving up a lot of the average sold price, because once you have a smaller number of properties that are being sold, like the opportunity for the averages to get thrown off by those big outliers is just a lot more abundant as an opportunity. So that's kind of what I'm seeing there. I just believe the average sold price has gone up for single family properties in Eagle River. I don't necessarily believe every one of them has gone up by about 8%, but you know, could be wrong. All right, let's go and talk condos real quick. So condos in Eagle River has never really been that big of a piece of the market. It is going to continue to grow moving forward, but for right now, not a very big sliver of the pie. So this time last year, there were 10 condos available on the market. This year, there are 8. So not a whole lot of movement one way or the other. Prior to COVID, we'd expect to see anywhere from like 17 to like 42. So it is all over the place on how many condos are available, just depending on what new project is coming to town. Next, we see that the number of actual closed units in Eagle River has gone from 7 this time last year to 8 this year. And prior to COVID, yeah, we do see that's about right. Anywhere from about 5 to 9 condos being sold. So I mean, we're right there about where we are historically. Now, for the average sold price for condos, we see that the average sold price is right at about $345,000. This time last year, it was right at about $319,000, which means we've seen an average increase for the average sold price for condos at about 8%. And this time last year it was like 7%. And this really isn't that big of a surprise, because Eagle River is kind of a smaller market. A lot of people do want to live here, and they're happy to live in a condo. That's what's going to be required in order for them to do that. And so the demand for the available condos in Eagle River is going to continue going up moving forward. And also, you know, it's the condos just in general are going to be in pretty high demand in these times where the interest rates are going to be a little bit higher than what some people are used to. Cost of living is higher, and so people are going to be more willing to consider these condos than they might have in previous years, just because it's, you know, usually a more affordable option for more folks. But yeah, we do kind of expect to see that continue moving forward, because there's going to continue to be a pretty strong demand. Okay, let's go and take a break real quick. Just real quick, I do host a podcast called The Alaskan Journey. Usually I interview people who've lived here for a little bit, and we talk about what it's like living in Alaska, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. We're shaking things up a little bit. We're starting kind of a new series where we'll have people come on to the show who hasn't even come on yet. who hasn't even moved to Alaska yet, so they can ask me questions about what it's like living in Alaska. If you would like to, be the host of the Alaskan Journey podcast, feel free to reach out on my website. Link for that is going to be in the description section down below. Make sure you put podcast in there so I know what we're talking about, and we'll see if we can get you set up and have you on there to host the Alaskan Journey podcast and get all your questions answered. Don't be shy about it, because I guarantee you, if you have questions about something, there's a lot of other people out there who probably have the exact same questions, so everybody benefits here. Okay, got all that out of the way. Let's keep it moving. All right, next thing we're going to look at is the wild world of multifamily properties in Eagle River. So we'll jump into this. Just keep in mind, this is like a micro market within a micro market, so not really. It's kind of hard. It's very situational, okay? Figuring out how to kind of interpret this data, but we'll jump into it. I'll kind of give you a bit of a summary at the end here. But we see this time last year, there were 5 properties available on the market for multifamily. This year, it's 4. Prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 10 to about 13. The number of multifamily properties this time last year was 1, and this year it's 0. So not a whole lot of movement there. Prior to COVID, that's actually right within line. We'd see anywhere from 1 to 0. All right, looking at the average sold price on paper, the multifamily market has lost about 50% of its value compared to last year. Now, before we get too excited, remember, super small sample size, and I think this time last year we had like some big commercial property here in Eagle River sell, so the average sold price was sitting right at about $1 million, and now we're down to like, normal people numbers at about $500,000. Now, the thing that really stood out to me is a couple of years ago, average sold price, prior to everything going crazy with that big property that must have sold sometime last year, was about $500,000 and about $30,000. So the average sold price has gone up at a pretty healthy clip at about $70,000 over the course of a couple of years. So the value of these multifamily properties continues to go up, and a big reason for that is a lot of people want to live in Eagle River, which does make the rents increase, which does increase the value of these properties. So that's really what we're seeing, a lot of the value going up there. Like, it's really tied to the rent potential you can get from the properties, and Eagle River is in a pretty good spot to do that because there's limited real estate, but also, a lot of people want to live here, so that's really why you see those values going up. Let me go and give you the summary real quick. I'm going to say right off the bat that you're going to see a lot of headlines out there and a lot of people saying, well, price cuts are coming all over the place and blah, 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 blah. But be very wary of the people who like really hype on price cuts and they don't say market values are coming down, okay? Because keep in mind what a lot of people aren't really, we've gone through the data here. You see the average sold price specifically for single family homes has gone up by about 8%. Now that really might not sound right to you because you're looking at it, you're going, what? I've seen all these price cuts. Why? How is the value still going up? Well, the reason is, like, let's say like somebody this year, they started at about $550. They came down to like $520 and it sold pretty quickly. So you look at that and you're like, man, that is a $30,000 decrease. The market must be collapsing. Well, like, pump your brakes. Like, $520 was realistically the market value to begin with. It just took the seller a little longer to kind of figure that out. And this time last year, that same property might have sold for about $400,000. This year it sold for about $420. After they made that cut down to that price. So that's really more of what we're seeing right now. Be very suspicious of any headlines out there that are talking about price cuts, because really the big thing that's going to matter for us is looking at the market values and the average sold price year to date compared to the year before, okay? And also keep in mind, you got me up here on my soapbox, anything that does not involve inventory or does not involve supply and does not involve demand is largely irrelevant when we're talking about real estate. I know a lot of people like going into this deep, dark rabbit hole and they like trying to find like this variable that's going to show like they know that now this is going to happen, now this is going to happen, and the market's going to collapse. Just hold on to your money and just wait. A lot of people said that back in 2020, and how did that work out? I know some people who lost potentially in the amount of appreciation, like probably close to $100,000 in appreciation by just thinking they were going to be smart, sit back and wait, and that wasn't the best move. lost out on the opportunity to really take advantage of the low interest rates. Even though, yes, things were kind of insane and pretty crazy, it still really did pay off in the long run, and be happy to show you the numbers for that. But, the big thing to remember, if it does not involve supply and does not involve demand, probably ignore whatever metric or variable someone's trying to peddle to you, okay? They're trying to really lean in and trying to make you as scared as possible. But people who watch this channel, I hope you're pretty savvy people. Just know supply, demand, if it doesn't involve that, move it along. Okay. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll see you next time.